Okay, so we're back from summer nights and back to work, back in the workshop, and so this week we're going to be getting another coat of primer onto the fenders inside the shed there for Dylan's XK, and we're going to try and put a shroud together for a thermo fan on the Torana. So I'll flip this around and show you. So that's the radiator out of the Torana, and we've got a thermo that will fit nicely into the core. But I don't want to fix it straight to there, so we're going to take some scrap sheet metal. We've marked out all the dimensions where we want to cut it out. We're going to use the bead roller to put some strengthening beads in the corners, and then the cheap sheet metal folder that I bought to fold the legs up to box it over, weld the corners, and hopefully make a shroud that fits that. And the idea behind making the shroud, okay, so the factory XK didn't run a shroud. It just had that little flap at the top to stop you putting your fingers into the fan blade as it's spinning. But for a mechanical fan to work efficiently and draw off the whole radiator, it should be set into a shroud. And so that way it's going to draw on the whole core of the radiator and pull heat through. Thermo fan, no different, should be exactly the same. Whereas if you use those cable ties, zip tie type things that hook the thermo fans directly onto the radiator, which I don't think Dylan's is on the XK at the moment. I think it's sitting in the boot. So yeah, he normally had one that was just fixed onto the front of the core there. And what's happening is that fan is only drawing from the section where the blades are at the core. So everywhere to the outside edges of the fan is not getting air pulled over it, getting traffic, sitting still, runs hot. So by mounting the thermo onto a shroud, hopefully that gives us the entire surface of the core to pull on, and yeah, should be good from there. So that's the plan anyway. So we'll get that mocked up and folded up and going from there. And now I'll turn you around here and we'll show you what we've got left to do on these fenders. So the other bit we're going to be on this weekend is the front fenders. There's a couple little rub throughs and a couple little pinholes that we fixed with some spot filler. They've been hit back to 240 grit. So what I'm going to do is give them a wipe down and blow another few coats of high fill on to seal them up nice and tight. And I'll probably even go over all the doors that Dylan's had rubbed back into 320. And I might either just spot prime a couple of little rub throughs that he's got, or I might even mask them up and give the entire door skin on the outer another couple of coats on all four doors while I've got the paint in the gun. And then they will be ready to do the final sand to get them back down to 600 grit or 400 grit, whatever we deem it needs to get colour on. The jams on the body are all done, the cowl's done, the bonnet has been done, all in 320 I think that all got to. The jams we're going to leave and they'll just get hit with sealer because you're not really going to see them with the doors on the car. And there's a couple of little rub throughs and stuff like that on the boot as well. So I'll go over all of them. Anywhere I think needs a little bit more primer on it, I might just spot prime on the body. And yeah, so that'll be us this video. So later on the weekend, as long as the weather's playing the game, I'll get you in here and we'll get this sorted and a little bit more work on the Torana. like a scene from the castle. Happy Australia Day long weekend. We've got to move the Falcon to get to the Falcon to paint the Falcon. Oh, we'll start moving stuff up and getting ready to clean. So she can sit up here for a couple of weeks beside the XA while we get into Dylan's old girl and get paint on it. It's about time it had a run, I think. Okay, let's start doing XK things. Better use that first though. Okay, so we've got the shed all cleaned up and the cars moved around, or a car moved around. So we've got some room to get some paint on these things. So 2 front fenders. They're all scuffed and wiped down with prep wash. And so is the stone tray for the front. This should be the last coat of primer to go on these things, just to touch up where we've done some little spot fills for some little air bubbles and stuff like that. So, and the lower section of this door, Dylan had a little bit of a rub through just there. So we're gonna get some primer on that one as well. So up in here, we've got our cells set up. Same primer we've used for the rest of the car, the Reverlo 4:1, and really nice sanding primer. And we're going to give this thing a go. Young Liam at work got me this. It's a 1.8mm DeVilbiss spray gun. So we're going to give that a crack for the final bit of primer and see how that goes. I'll get the paint mixed up. We'll get the mask on and get in and go from there. Okay, so we need a hardener, and some glasses. What have I done here? Oh, I've got too much paint. Already up. And that's what happens when you don't use your glasses. Give me a second. I'll get some paint out of this and then I'll get the hardener in there. Alright, now we've got that fixed up, we'll get the hardener in. There it goes. And we want about 10% thinners. Just a hair more, because it doesn't have to be real thick. We're not filling a whole lot of stuff, we're just putting some material on the panel to give us something to block. So I'll get this mixed in and we'll strain it into the gun and then we'll get this back into that. Okay, So see if I can't make a mess getting this in here. Now the gun we're using is the DeVilbiss GTI Pro Light with a 1.8mm tip, and I've got no strainer in it, so that's why we're filtering the paint going down in. I mean, we always filter it anyway, but no strainer in there, you really don't want any chunks going through it. The paint should flow okay. I've never used this one before, so a couple of guys have been using them for primer guns that we've seen online, so, and Liam's used it before as well, and he reckons they're a good thing, so we'll see if I've got this right and see what we can do. Now by all reports they're just running the fan wide open and the fluid tip wide open, and about between 25 and 30 psi of that line pressure. So we've got it set to about 29-30 psi on the regulator, and we'll play with it from there once we get the gun hooked up. So I'll just finish cleaning this up. And we should be good to go. That'll do there. Okay, so first impression of that gun, my God. It's actually nice to use a gun that's actually really good. That's the first primer gun I've had that's actually, that works really nice. Set up the way they recommended, and minimal overspray or over atomization. Like you could see, it's not clouding the flame in a room full of paint, and the product actually went where it's supposed to on the panel. Yeah, I'll get another cup mixed up. We'll go in and finish the last bit and put another coat over everything, and then I'll get you in and show you once we've cleaned it up. So we've cleaned everything up and given it 2 hits on the panel, and it's laid out really nice. Would have been nice to have that gun when we were actually priming the rest of the body. Very, very low material wastage, and man, it puts the product on the panel and it just sits there and it lays out flat. Now today is a really warm day, so we had to be careful we didn't get any dry spray, but man, that gun with a 1.8 tip has laid that primer down beautiful. So that'll sand up really, really nice, and you can see it. We did the lower section of this door as well, because there was that rub through, and it just lays it on so smooth. So anyone looking for a good primer gun, they're not the dearest, they're not the cheapest, but they're not the dearest. That one there was the what was it, the ProLite by DeVilbiss. So the GTI ProLite, that sucker there with the 1.8 tip. Really, really nice gun. And for a finished gun, the one that I used the other day on the XA fender, the GPI Velocity. That one there, for a finished gun, really nice on base coat and clear. So that's what we used on this one. Alright, so I'm going to finish cleaning up, and then we'll have a look, and we might, while we're waiting for that to dry off, hook in and see if we can bend up the sheet metal for this fan shroud for the Torana. Okay, hang on. Shed dog life. It's hot tonight, isn't it, Darren? Alright, so the dog's puffing its guts out, so she's going to cool off, and I'm going to find where I put that sheet metal bender so we can get that one set up and see if we can use it to get this fan shroud made. The paint's in there drying, and yeah, it looks really good. Okay, so hopefully this thing will work for what we want it to do. Had it for a little while, just have to pull it out of the box. This is one of those real basic ones off of Amazon, Temu, something like that. So it's just wider than the little press brake one we've got. And it's not going to fold real heavy metal, but we're not doing really heavy metal. So I'll pop it up on the bench and we'll go from there. Okay, so it's hey, it's a cheap bender. It's a bit janky, but we've got it set up. Let's see if it'll do what we want it to do. Just got to find somewhere to put you guys. And so we've got the metal clamped where we want it. I might actually get a pair of locking pliers. And we'll pop a set of locking pliers in the middle, just because that metal strip doesn't seem to, I don't know, it'll probably bend okay. It's only fairly light sheet metal, but yeah, I don't know. Doesn't fill me with confidence. Yeah. See if I can ever get these things out of the packet. Go this way. Just one in the middle would be nice. Alright, so that's got it clamped across the whole way. Let's see what happens. No. Come on. Should have clamped this back a bit further, I suppose. Move this clamp back a bit so we can fold it a bit further up. We'll see what that does. Well, I suppose put a fold in it. It's whether it's straight or not. Oh, look, we can work with that. It's good enough. Now, is there any way I'm going to get this other side in there? Maybe. We'll make sure that bar is behind the pivot point. There. Get this one there. Get the sheet metal in. There we go. Oop. There we go. That one there. Redo this one. Oop, too far. Oh, come on. There we go. And one more in the middle. Okay. Okay, so both of those are going to work okay. Did I think this through? Should I have bent those ones first, or should I have bent the short ones first on the other ends? I might have to have a think about this. I think I might have mucked up and bent the wrong ones first. Okay, so we're going to do the short turn-ups on the end in the Hafco one, because it'll fit, but it's too narrow to do the wider ones. And yeah, it looks like we're just going to have to use hammer and dolly and dress it over, because that's what we had to do along there and the bottom. So we'll get this one folded up at 90. Alright, so we'll pop it up on the bench and we'll work out how we're going to clamp a straight edge on that, and we'll fold those two other ends over. So that's kind of what we're going for there. I was going to put some sticky backed foam on the underside of those folded lips to seal it to the radiator. These end ones we're going to fold down and pop a couple of holes in there to line up the bolt holes that clamp the radiator into the brad support, and that'll clamp it all down, and then we'll cut the center out for the fan. Right, so change of plan again. I went through the scrap cabinet and we found some heavy plate. It's short enough to go between where we want the fold. I took the duckbill vice grips, and we've flared that back again. So we've got the fold where we want it. We've just flattened it out so it'll fit in the press brake. And now, hopefully that means we should be able to turn this one over and then refold that other lip. Maybe, if it works. Kinda flaming slipped in the brake, but I think we can fix the rest of that with a hammer and a dolly. Yeah, again, it's not a sharp brake, but I'll just go and try it on the radiator and see if that's going to give us the length we need. Okay, so that actually worked. I'm happy with that, or as happy as I'm going to be with what we've got to fold it with. So we'll end up dressing that with a hammer and dolly and welding down the corners. And now we're just going to take those vice grips and bend that back up where we wanted it to a 90. Just got to go along it piece by piece so we get the fold back where we wanted it. Would have been better if that half coat bender of ours was a bigger bed, but what are you going to do? A little bit more on the ends. Okay, so we've got everything folded up as good as it's going to get, and now we're just going to weld the inside corners and the outside corners, so we've got a little bit of meat there to grind the outside and sand it off, and then it should be ready to sand and give a coat of paint. Okay. So if I can get it to do that everywhere, we're good. Okay. Okay. And okay, one more. Try the outside first. Might be better. Okay. So the idea of that was supposed to be, so once it's cooled down, we can get the flap disc and grind the outside of it and put a bit of a rounded edge to the outside, and hopefully there's enough meat by welding the inside that it doesn't cut through. Okay, so now we're going to cut the hole out for the fan to sit on. So we're going to run a step bit down through here. Oops. Just getting started. Big enough. And then, hopefully I can see what I'm doing with these glasses and run the nibbler around it, and it should cut it out for us. Just wait for that to turn off, and it's not the smoothest, there's a few little jagged edges there, but we'll get the sanding disc on the grinder and we'll go through and neaten it up to our mark line. Okay, so we're slowly getting there. Holes cut out, fan's going to sit there like that. I have to make some little 90-degree brackets up. I'll go get some aluminium angle or something from Bunnings, drill a hole in it, slide a bolt down there, and we'll bolt them down to the shroud. Now these, we've got some 1.5mm by 3-inch rubber from Clark Rubber. So what we're going to do is put a couple of those trim clips, I'll say 3 across the top, and then underneath them we're going to sandwich a whole lot of holes through there. So that way, as the car's driving along on the highway, air coming through, it's not going to have a blockage to get the air through the radiator. It'll come through the fan, but it'll also come through those flaps, and they'll lift up as you're driving. And then as the car slows down and the airflow through is slower, they'll fall back over, block the holes, and the fan will pull the air through. Well, that's the theory anyway. So hopefully it won't have the shroud causing it to be a restriction for airflow through the radiator when you don't really need the fan. So, all right, I'll grab a drill and we'll start marking those out.
Okay, let's send some holes through this one. That's going to be there. Probably just do 4 across. And then, might do some in the middle as well. 3. more in the middle. Okay. That should. So, the same over here. We went from the closest one to the inside. Ooh. Don't go any further. We'll give that a sand and it's going to mount the rubbers.
Okay, so that's pretty much what it's going to be. I've decided we've got some aluminium black rivets that'll rivet those rubber flaps on, and we've just got to make the brackets to mount the fan on and drill the 4 holes to line up with the radiator mount holes, and that's ready to throw some black paint on, and then we can wire it into the Torana. And yeah, next step from there is hook the hoses up, put coolant in it, and it's ready to run the cam in. So that one's a little bit closer to being finished too. So I'm going to leave it here for tonight. I might scuff it and get some paint on it. If I do, I'll show you what that looks like. And yeah, we'll see what we can do in the morning. Okay, so this week's video we're going to end up getting a coat of paint on this in black, so it's ready to assemble a fan on it. And I've decided we'll make it a short one. I'll edit through all the other stuff and just make a short video up. The next one will probably be going through sanding. So the next couple of vids are going to be getting this XK into color. I'm going to go pearl white. So next weekend, hopefully there's a lot of prepping and a lot of sanding and taping up ready for the color to go on the weekend after. So yeah, not massively interesting, but it's been a long build for Dylan and I. And yeah, it's finally going to get shiny. So yeah, so I'll just wrap this one up with a bit of paint on this, and that way we can assemble our bits and pieces on it. And again, thanks for hanging around. Thanks for sticking around and coming back, and see you soon. Possibly with a shiny XK. So we'll let that flash off. It's going to go a satin black, and we'll give it a couple more hits and all good to go and put back on the tote.